betrothal could be done with relation. Yeah. And that's what Rav is saying over here. That the first betrothal, which he probably gave her money as a betrothal, so that was not valid. But the second one, he didn't make any stipulation. And they had relations. So it's probably because he is accepting however she is. There's no stipulation there. But Shmuel says no. Shmuel says, Eina tzrichim and a get. That's because the whole relations that they have now was all thinking that the first betrothal was valid. And so they weren't making a brand new betrothal now. And since the first one was actually not valid, so what they did now was nothing. It's just they didn't have intention that this is a new betrothal. So it's really a machlekes Rav and Shmuel in this. What's going on? Well, Amar Abaya. Abaya says, Leitema time of the Rav, Kivan Shekansa Stam Achuli Achalatina. Don't say that what just happened over here was that since he consummates the marriage, he has relations with her, that's saying that he just said, don't worry about the stipulation that I made before, that you can't have any vows. He says, I'm Michael that. I don't mind if you have vows. Don't say that that's the pshat in Rav. Rather, what is the pshat in Rav? What's really happening is Rav says that a person would never want his relations just to be promiscuous behavior. He would only be having relations if it's considered a marriage. What he's doing now is he's creating a new marriage. What's the difference which way we put it? Yeah, but there's a difference here, and what Abaya is bringing out is that if we say that he was Michael, so then he's going to be required to give her a ksuba if they get divorced. But if we say that this is a brand new kedushin, the way he's putting it now is right now there is no ksuba yet. Why? You say it's a brand new kedushin because this is just a kansastam, and the rule is that by kansastam he marries her without any stipulation, and he does find that she has vows. So then he can divorce her without giving her a ksuba. It's not that he was meichel the stipulation; he just didn't have any stipulation at all. And if he doesn't have any stipulation at all, he does a brand new kedushin stam. So then the stam means without any stipulation. So then what happens when there's no stipulation? Then if he divorces her, he doesn't have to give her a ksuba. If you say it's a brand new betrothal, then we say that if they get divorced, he doesn't need to give her a ksuba, because that would be kansastam. But if you say that it's a follow-up from the first betrothal, and he was now meichel the stipulation. Now this is not a kansastam, this is a mechila. And so then he would be required to give her a ksuba if they get divorced. Forgive me. Yeah. You with me? Okay. Yeah. But it turns out that it's not always nesuin. It turns out that sometimes this kansa is really a kedusha. Kansa means that they have relation. Kansa means he brings her into the house, which usually that means kedusha. Yeah. Okay. Let's tell you wanted to comment. Okay, let's see further. The Gemara asks right away, this is an easy question. The Gemara says, you're telling me a machlekes Rav and Shmuel about how this works. Turns out that Rav and Shmuel argued about this once before. I feel then Moshe maybe doesn't know to come back on. So it goes like this. Yeah, Rav and Shmuel argued about this somewhere else. Why do I have to argue about it again? So the Itmar, we had a statement, Tana Shleimiana, a young girl that was married off not by the father but by the brothers and the mother. They married this young girl off to someone. Now the rule was that she can always walk out of that marriage without a get. It's called miyan. Well, v'higdila. But then she reached maturity, and after she reached maturity, then the husband has relations with her, and amda v'nissus. But she goes and she marries someone else. Wow. Well, what happened was she didn't do miyan when she was young, but she walks out of the marriage when she's older, and now after the relation. Yeah, so this seems to be a problem. But very interesting, because it depends when he has relations with her when she's older. What is the significance of that relations? Is that a marriage relations, or is that just they had relations? Well, they weren't really married beforehand. It was a like this quasi marriage beforehand. So if they now have a new marriage, then the second marriage, when she marries someone else, that's nothing. But if the relation that they had now was relying on the earlier marriage, which doesn't really exist because she walks out afterwards. There was no new marriage here that took place after she reached maturity. So then when she marries the second person, that's a real marriage. It's going to require a get. So what happens is like this. Rav Amar, Eina Tzricha get Misheni. Rav says she was married to the first fellow. Now that she marries someone else without a divorce, the second marriage is nothing. She was married to the first guy. Now, where was she married to the first guy? Well, because they had relations after she reached maturity. But how do you know that relations was a marriage? Well, Rav says that no one would ever have relations and just let it be znus, just to be promiscuous behavior. It's obvious that he wanted it to be a marriage, a betrothal. Yeah, if that would be the case, then a lot of people would need to get.
He married her when she was young. She became a widow. He then had relations with her, which is a question. Afterwards, she wanted to marry me with the man. Talking about the question that changed again from two.
Right.
But isn't that whole situation, the second one, more seriously when she was, about this?
Right.
So don't exclude that yet.
Right.
Seriously.
Right. Right. Nevertheless, does she need a get? After maturity? It should make her, right. It should make her, but that's only if his intention was that should be a marriage. But if he was relying on an earlier marriage that was invalid, then that would be nothing. Are you looking at a halakha comment or the halakha comment? Yeah, we're not discussing. You're ahead of us. You're ahead of us. No. When you look at the comments in the Quran, so there's notes, biographies, and halakha. So the notes would tell you even like and its background also, but the halakha just tells you one side of it. It doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you the back and forth that we're going through. Yeah. Okay. Right. The question is, she walked out of the marriage later. Does that help if she walks out of the marriage? Yeah. It wasn't a marriage, so she can walk out of the marriage. But I thought that if they have relations after she reaches maturity, that she can't walk out anymore on the marriage.
Should be like.
Yeah. But Rav is saying that no, the relations that they had afterwards, after they reached maturity, is nothing. She can still do mian because the marriage took place when she was a minor. No, that's not what Rav's saying. Rav's saying the opposite. Rav's saying that ain't tzricha get misheni because she does get married to this person and she can't walk out. If she walked out when she was a minor, she doesn't need to get. She didn't walk out when she was a minor. She reached maturity, they have relations, and then she walks out. It's the marriage as long as she doesn't walk out. Mian. Mian, it's what she walks out.
But what's the time?
But that's later. I'm not saying she's married. I'm not sure.
What was the case? She's still a virgin.
There's something in there.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, there's something over there, something in Yavamas. Yeah, could have been, the question was what type of relations they had. Those are abnormal relations, if she was still considered a virgin, something like that. Okay, so Shmuel Amatricha get Misheni. Shmuel says that no, she does require a divorce from the second person. Why? Because she wasn't married to the first person. She's not married to the first person, so she needs a divorce. Why was she not married to the first person? Because she walked out. But they had relations after she was reached maturity. Well, whatever the case is, the exact machlekes that we have by when there's a stipulation in the marriage, you also have that same machlekes by if she walks out of a marriage afterward. And there's a machlekes Rav and Shmuel, what the relations is considered. Is it considered a marriage? Where Rav says it's considered a marriage, just like over here. Rav says that she's considered married. And Shmuel says, no, she's not considered married by that relation. Basically, the question is, Rav's opinion is that a man would never let his relations be promiscuous behavior. And therefore, it has to be that he had intention for marriage. Shmuel says, no, people would do that. Okay. Depends on the city they live in. Tzricha. Tzricha. It's necessary to have both of these arguments. If it was talking about only that one, we're talking about the girl that walks out of the marriage. Over there, Rav would say, over there, Rav says that he clearly intended to marry her. Why? Because there was no condition that maybe the marriage would still be good. But by us, there's a condition on the marriage. Does she have vows? Does she have nadarim? Maybe he's relying on the first marriage because it still could be that his first marriage is still good. His betrothal, rather, is still good. Why? Because if she doesn't have any vows, then it's fine. There's a stipulation there. Doesn't mean that it's automatically invalid. We're going to find out later if it was invalid. But maybe when he's marrying her when he's having relations with her without any stipulation, maybe he thinks that the original betrothal is good. And so he's not recreating a betrothal here. If that's the case, so then maybe he holds, like he would hold in the case of the Tanai of the Nadarim, would hold like Shmuel that she's actually married to the second guy. because the first marriage is absolutely nothing. We found out that she had vows, and his whole relations were just dependent on that marriage, which didn't exist. Okay, V'yitmar Baha, and if it would only say by us about the Tanai, Baha Kamar Shmuel. This is where Shmuel says where they're married, where she would be married to the second guy, or that she does not require a get from the first one. Why? Because where there's a condition, and Shmuel saying that he was relying that the condition would actually be fulfilled. But over there where there was no condition, then maybe Shmuel himself would say that he has to assume that the man would never let that his relations with someone would be just a promiscuous behavior, and it would be a marriage, which means the second marriage is nothing. Maybe Shmuel would agree with Rav. So we need to have both cases to tell me that Rav and Shmuel argue in both cases. Otherwise, we would have thought that they're agreeing in one of the other cases. Either Rav agrees to Shmuel or Shmuel agrees to Rav. Tanan. Okay, we're going to go back to our Mishnah. The Mishnah said that if he marries her and he finds that she has vows, he didn't make any stipulation at the marriage. Well, but she has this is like a blemish. She has these vows on her. So the rule is he can divorce her and he doesn't have to pay the ksuba. Ksuba d'lai. He doesn't have to pay the ksuba. Hagita bai. But the get, he has to give her. Well, what's going on over here? He has to give her a get. If we say that the two cases of the Mishnah are really one story, that he betrothed her with stipulation, and then he follows up with relations without any stipulation. So look at what just happened there. That's considered a real marriage. Sounds like Rav. He redoes the betrothal with relations. My love, Kitchal Tanai becomes a stam. The Mishnah is one case. He married her, he betrothed her with a stipulation. We're going to find out later that was not fulfilled. But now he consummates the marriage with relations, and he doesn't have any stipulation. Turns out that he has to give her a get. Why? Because according to Rav, what just happened now when he consummates the marriage is he's redoing a kedushin. Because the first kedushin had a stipulation. He's redoing it because he doesn't want to have his relations to be nothing, to be just that she has no vows. The stipulation was he's betrothing her on condition that there's no vows. Well, we're going to find out later that she did have vows. But now they're having relations, and the question is that when there's no stipulation in that relation, he doesn't say that I'm entering into a marriage with you now, only if you don't have vows. He doesn't say anything. So it sounds like he's redoing the kedushin without any stipulation, according to Rav. Now he needs a get. Umar says, Tif to the Shmuel, this is strong question on Shmuel. According to Shmuel, it would not require a get. Now, the Mishnah doesn't actually say it requires a get. The Mishnah just says that she doesn't get a ksuba. But the fact that it doesn't say that she requires a get means that she does require a get. The Gemara says, Lai, kitchastam v'kansastam. You thought that the Mishnah was referring to the same case, it was a follow-up of the original case of the Mishnah. First case of the Mishnah was kedushin with stipulation. Second case of the Mishnah is consummating that marriage of the kedushin with the stipulation. But that's not so, the Gemara says. Really, what's going on over here is that there was one case of kedushin with the stipulation. Then we have a brand new case where there was a kedushin with no stipulation, and now he's entering into an actual marriage with no stipulation. And the rule is that she's going to require a get. Why? Because there's no stipulation. Aval kitchal tenai v'kansastam. But let's say it was a follow-up of the first case of the Mishnah. Then then probably you would say that you don't require a get. That would be Shmuel's rule. If that's the case, this is the introduction to a question. Aditani, instead of teaching, why do you even have to say that? That it's not a marriage. I have a better case for you. Listen, consistent benim tzolen nedarim mekadeshes. We could have added in a clause that would have been so much more of a chiddush, that would have included everything else. Would have gone like this. We could have said, the case of the Mishnah says that if someone betroths the woman with a stipulation that she has no vows, what the Mishnah actually says at that point is that if there are vows, then it's not a betrothal. But instead of saying that, we could have said a bigger chiddush. We could have said, if someone betroths the woman on condition that she doesn't have a vow, and then he consummates that marriage without saying any stipulation. According to Shmuel, the rule would be that the whole betrothal is nothing and the whole marriage is nothing. Now, once you say that, then for sure when he doesn't consummate the marriage, the betrothal is nothing. So why don't you tell me the bigger chiddush and we would have known everything else? Well, the fact that you didn't say it, is really telling me that it's not true. And right, because if you wanted to tell it to me, then you would have said it. You didn't say it; it's not true. And therefore, what it really means is that if he does a betrothal with a stipulation, but then he consummates the marriage without any stipulation, the real halacha is that he is married, which is what Rav would say. The Gemara says now, hachinami kamer. No. I mean, the husband not making a stipulation? Right. So he made the stipulation on the first case, in the first betrothal. Now he's having relations with her, and we assume that he's following up from the betrothal. The only problem is that if he's relying on the betrothal, and the betrothal turns out was totally invalid because she actually had vows, so then this whole consummation of the marriage is also invalid, because there was never any betrothal. Well, that's one approach. The other approach is that the fact that he's marrying her now, that he's consummating this marriage, is because he's redoing the betrothal with relation. That's what Rav holds, and that's what we're saying. Forget about the minor part now. Okay. So the Gemara says, "Hachinami kamar." Really, what's happening is a mekadesh asi someone ashenal and darim mekansistam nitzol and darmeina mekadeshes. Kinsistam mekansistam tetzle b'ksuba. Ksuba d'leibai ha'gita bai. We added in that clause. You said you're right. We'll read that into the Mishnah, and it goes like this: that if someone betroths the woman on condition with the stipulation that she doesn't have vows, and then he marries her, and she does have the vows, so the whole marriage was nothing, even though at the marriage there was no stipulation. However, if he betrothed her without any stipulation and he marries her without any stipulation, then the marriage is good, but he can divorce her without an iksuba because she did have vows, and that's considered like a blemish. But the get he still has to do. Okay. Now they added a phrase to fix up Shmuel opinion. Yeah, that's not interpreting Bryces. Those 13 ways are interpreting Sukkim verses in the Torah. This is interpreting a Mishnah or a Brysa. This is interpreting the words of the Mishnah. Yeah. Bar now asks, okay, if this is the case, that it requires a get if he marries her and she has vows, but he doesn't have to give her a ksuba. So what's going on over there? Why doesn't he have to give her a ksuba? The Amrar, because he says I can't handle a woman with vows, so no ksuba for her. Then that should also mean I can't handle a woman with vows, would mean that he never intended to marry a woman with vows. If that's the case, then the whole marriage should be nothing. Well, Amar Rabba says, you're right. Shricha get midivrayim. It's not a real get. It's only a rabbinic get. That's the way we answer this question. Only a rabbinic get. Okay. Rava Amar Tana Svuki Misafkale. Rava has a different interpretation for this. He says, we're not actually sure what's going on over here. Well, Gabi Mimaina Lakula. When it comes to money, she's asking for the ksuba. So because we are in the doubt, we would tell her, look, you're trying to get money, prove that you deserved it. Now, you had vows, and we're not sure if that's a good marriage. So I'm not going to pay until we know that that was a good marriage. Gabi get, Gabi sur l'chumra. When it comes to the prohibition, we're going to be extra strict. So we're going to require a get, but we won't require him to pay anything. Okay. Amar Rabba. Remember, we had Abaya's view that what was Rav and Shmuel discussing over here, that if a person would under Maisa Bilasa Bilasnos, if a person would make the relations into just sensuous, licentious, just to make his relations licentious behavior, right? But and Shmuel says no, a person would. Rav says no. So what would, according to Rav, that would mean that he's actually redoing the betrothal. Okay, that was the way Abaya looked at this. Amar Rabba says it's a little different. Machlekes betor shtei nashim, but betor isha achas divra kol ein tzrichem en aged. What's really going on over here is that, a man is allowed to marry more than one wife. So what happened was, there's two women here. There's Rachel and Leah. He goes over to Leah and he says, I'll marry you on condition, I'll be betrothed to you on condition that you don't have any vows. Then he goes over to Rachel and he lives with her. Turns out that Rachel has a bunch of vows. But when he married Rachel, he didn't have that stipulation set. So do we say, let's take a look at this. Where's the machlekes that's betor shtei nashim? When there were two women there. Aval betor isha achas, divrei kol ein tzrichem en aged. This would mean like this, isha achas. If he betrothed the woman and he made a stipulation, only on condition that you don't have any vows, is this betrothal anything? And then he goes ahead and he consummates that marriage. So in that case, we would say that even Rav that said before, a person would never have his relations to be licentious behavior. But even according to Rav over here, because it's it's the same woman that was all based on the stipulation. And it turns out later on we find out that she had vows. We're going to say that it was all based on the original betrothal, which was nothing, and the rest was nothing yet. Ain't shichem and again. I mean, it would be I think we had a problem with the Tanai on a. Right. They think about on your own behavior. But were we allowed to do a Tanai on a Nisuin? I think we had a problem with doing a Tanai on a Nisuin because if it fell apart, if it wasn't kept, you couldn't take a indefinite condition on a Nisuin, because later on at the end of their marriage, he violates the condition, then the whole marriage falls apart. He marries her. It's on condition that you don't, gamble. She had a gambling time. I'll marry you on condition you never gamble. Okay, he doesn't gamble. Then when he's 70 years old, he goes and gambles. The whole marriage just everything goes up. They were never married. So it doesn't work like that. I think when it comes to a marriage, you can make a stipulation that you don't gamble for the first month.
Oh, you have to
And then you have to set a time. And then it would be okay. Then the marriage would take place. Otherwise, because it can't be an indefinite stipulation. We had it somewhere. I don't remember. Okay, so now we're discussing Rabbah. That's saying that the machlekes Rav and Shmuel is only when there's two women, and one of them had a stipulation on her, how the betrothal would be, and the second one he doesn't make any stipulation. And do we say that the stipulation of the first applies to the second? But if it would be the same woman that he betrothed and then he marries, so we would say that the stipulation for sure applies. Amar Abaya, maybe it's Amar Leah Abaya. Parentheses. Yeah. Abaya spoke to Rav, and we have a lot of conversation. He was a student of Rav. One second. Very interesting question the Gemara is asking. That our Mishnah was talking about one woman that got married, that got betrothed, with a stipulation. Then she got married, and without a stipulation, was stam, and that was the whole question on Shmuel. Apparently, Rabbah knows about the earlier Gemara that they asked this question. And what's happening now is he's saying, but that was only one woman, and you said that according to that, everyone would agree that there was no marriage. It can't be, because the case of the Mishnah was used as a proof for this machlekes. According to you, the case of the Mishnah is not relevant. Ella, rather, he says, Yitmar hachi yitmar. Well, we have to redo what Rabbah said. Amar Rabbah machlekes b'tos lisha achas. Ken shtei nashim. Av b'tos lisha achas greidas adivra kol ein tzichem and again. You know what's really going on? We have to change the case of Rabbah. Really what happened was he married a woman with a stipulation, only on condition that there's no vows. Then he divorced her. Then he remarries her. When he remarries her, he didn't make any stipulation. Do we say that the stipulation that he made before was lingering, and that's going to apply to the new case as well? But if it would just be one woman, without a divorce in the middle, it was just a betrothal and then a marriage and a kedushin, and then in a soon and again everyone would agree that that's a follow-up of the first one, and the condition still applies to the marriage. Well, it doesn't tell us exactly what the question is here. Are we saying we added in the case of a divorce, right? But with one wife, not two wives. No, it's just one wife. Abaya has a question. Kitcha betos. Now, he marries her by mistake. Now, he married her by mistake means that there was a mistake. He meant to marry her only if she doesn't have any vows, and he marries her. And it turns out that she does have vows. So there was a mistake here. What meaning is that the mistake because the stipulation wasn't fulfilled. Pachas mishava pruta, or he used the coin or he used the ring that was less than a shava pruta. He took the ring off the cigar. It doesn't have a value of a pruta. V'chein katan shakidish, or if it was a child that gave the kedushin. Now, even though he sent these fancy gifts afterwards, gifts sounds like a kedushin, right? And there a necklace and earrings and a bracelet and all of this nice things. Well, Eina Mekudeshes, that's not a Kedushin. Shemachmas Kedushin Harishainim Shalah. That was only gifts based on the first Kedushin. But those gifts were not a new Kedushin. And the new Kedushin, and the first Kedushin was not valid. And the new Kedushin never happened. Okay. Dimbalo, but if he has relations with her, then it's Kanu. Then he acquired her. Well, what are we saying now? It's a huge problem. According to Rabbah, if it's one woman without a divorce in the middle, that he did not acquire her. The stipulation of the first betrothal still exists. Rab Shimon ben Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amar Imbalu Laikanu. Shimon, he says in the name of Shimon ben Yehuda. I'm not sure who that is. The name of Rabbi Shmuel says that he doesn't acquire. Okay, whatever the case is, there's a machlekes here. But we were looking at the Tanakama that he acquires it. But here, it was a mistake all about one woman, and there is a machlekes about this. My love, Tos Nadarim. When we said that it was a mistake in the marriage, we were assuming that meant that there was a stipulation. Where it says, Lai, Tos Pachas Mishava Pruta, he used the ring that wasn't worth a pruta, wasn't worth the smallest amount. Where it says, 1 second, Pachas Mishava Pruta Behedi Ketanila. That was another case. What was the first case? First case was there was a mistake because there was a stipulation. Second case was less than a Shava Pruta. Now you're telling me that what was the mistake that it was less than a Shava Pruta? Then why do you have two clauses saying the same thing? Kitcha B'tas Pachas Mishava Pruta. It says upach. It says it's another case. Where it says no, Perusha Kamafarish. Second case is just explaining the first case. It goes like this. Kitcha B'tas Ketzad. What would be a case where there was a mistake in the Kedushin? Kitcha Pachas Mishava Pruta. They married her with less than a Shava Pruta. But my kamiflagi, and what would the machlekes be? Mar Savra the Midei Hashem Kedushin Teifin Pachas Mishava Pruta v'Gamar Abal Hashem Kedushin. Everyone knows that less than a Shava Pruta doesn't work. So what his relations now with her is obviously a relations that's considered a betrothal, right? It can be Makadosh Bekesef Shtarobiyah type of Kedushin. Person didn't know that it wasn't a valid Kedushin. He just thought any ring would work. So because and when he has relations with her, it's really relying on the first Kedushin, which wasn't actually valid. It leaves him with nothing. That would be the machlekes between Reb Shimon ben Yehuda and the Tanakama. Heisvei, we have a question. He says, I'm going to live with you with condition. In other words, he's going to make a betrothal now, but it's only on condition that your father agrees to this marriage. The Mishnah, the Brisa says, Afal Pishlei Ratzav Mekudeshes. What happened?
How you go on with it? Turns out the one you want to is $613. Into $612.
Apparently, my example of a cigar ring was not necessarily less than a Shabbat.
That's the top of the line cigar. The cheapest cigar.
Yeah, but you can say, technically you can.
I was referring to, remember that old bubble gum? I was referring to that one. That's not a Shabbat. It was a bubble gum in the shape of a cigar. And they put a little paper around it. Okay.
Oh, I think those are nice kind of cigars.
Yeah.
That's it. Just gotta go one.
Yeah.
Auction. Gotta be owned by the G to start it.
Dr. Steinfelder, that you hear at $613 a ring. So it must be a Jew that's selling a cigar ring for $613. But if it was Lubavitcher, it would have been $770.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. He says on condition that the father consents. So the Brisa says, "Afal pi shelei ratza av," even if the father doesn't consent, mekudeshes, still a good marriage. Reb Shimon ben Yehuda Mishum Reb Shimon, who was the Reb Shimon before? It's funny. Before we had Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Shmuel. Here we have Reb Shimon ben Yehuda, the name of Reb Shimon. Okay, whatever. Ratza ha'av mekudeshes, le ratza aveinu mekudeshes. Oh, this. Famous couple got married with a paper cigar. Later, he replaced it with a jeweled replica. Who is that? Johnny Brown? Molly Brown? Are you familiar with them? Dr. Stein doesn't know. Back to Google.
But in a way, not being inspected.
Yeah, you have to inspect it to make sure it's real. That's why we don't use. He discovered the largest load of silver in history.
You just do the largest little slipper and you have to use a paper ring.
Okay, so so
I'm sorry. So when we inspected the ring, I said this cigar ring is one of those well. It's okay.
yeah, that's right. We don't use anything that could be miscalculated. Because the woman may have intention that she's marrying him because she feels that that's so precious, and then it turns out that it was really a fake, or whatever. So we use something that's just the shabbat. We use just a simple band, no jewelry in it, because jewelry could be, zirconium or something, that doesn't have the value that she was thinking that was. The engagement ring with a jewel. And without a jewel. Oh, yeah, so they would do both, but the wedding band is just a simple band because we want it to be a Shabbat Putta, and she should just realize that it's only a Shabbat Putta. Or not that it has any sort of possible miscalculation in its value.
So for engagement, it gave her $1 million thing. Marriage, it's a simple thing.
Right. The way we do it is we hold the engagement ring. And we give it to them after the wedding. Right? That's what they do. Okay, so like the diamond ring, she doesn't get the diamond ring when she's engaged. She gets it after the chuppah. She gets the band, and then in the yichud room or something, he says, "Oh, by the way, here's the other ring." She says, "Where's the other ring?"
Yeah.
She never gets it. I'm not sure. Maybe she wants it. Okay. So there's a machlekes here. Well, Hasam b'ha kamifligi. No, I skipped the line. What we're doing now is we're comparing this to the case of the stipulation in the marriage, which that's what he's doing on condition that your father agrees. And then he consummates the marriage. And we say that it's mikudeshes, according to the Tanakama. Why? Because he would never make his relations just plain licentious behavior. He wants it to be a real marriage. So you see, according to Rabbah said that everyone agrees that if it's one woman, we would say that the stipulation is still intact, and the marriage would be nothing if we find out that the stipulation wasn't fulfilled. But now we're seeing that even if the stipulation isn't fulfilled, the marriage is intact. And why? Because we say that the way he consummated the marriage was without any stipulation, because he wouldn't want the marriage to be licentious behavior. Okay, So the Gemara says, "Asim bakamiflagi." Rather, this is a machlekes. It's different. Mar sever nashiyas av al menashi yishtekav vashasikli. One says, "See, what happened was the father doesn't say anything. The girl's father.
Usually there's a condition that if he objects, it's not a marriage. That's. Yes.
Actually, I don't know if it's the girl's father or his father. He says, "My father." Yeah, my father. He wants his father to agree.
His father.
So whatever the case is, that doesn't make a difference over here. But what happens is his father doesn't say anything. So one opinion says that when I said I want my father to agree, he meant that I want my father not to disagree. So the fact that he was quiet meant that he didn't disapprove, and so that's a good marriage. And the other one holds, Umar said, I want my father to say yes. The father didn't say anything. So that's why there's a machlekes if this is a good marriage. It doesn't have to do with the stipulation. It has to do with what he meant by agreeing. Okay. Isrei.
That's back to the sheep.
Right. Isrei, Maidim Chacham Rabbi Lezer. Yeah, with kids it's like this. They say you didn't say no. So, can I go to my friend's house? Let's see. Okay, you didn't say no. Okay. Maidim Chacham Rabbi Lezer Bektana Shisia via Veniskarsha via Sem Bechaya Vechzira. This was a complicated case in Yavamas about if someone marries a woman and then he divorces her. They didn't have any children. Well, at that point, she would be totally forbidden to marry his brother because it's her husband's brother. The brother can't marry her, it's his sister. He didn't die, they were just divorced. But then he marries her back. The first husband marries her back. And then he dies. And there's still no children. So there's a machlekes then if there's mitzvah ibam, because she was forbidden before, it doesn't remain. Anyway, in that machlekes, it says that Maidim Chamer Rabbi Lezer, if it would have been a katana, Sheisia via Veniskash, the katana was married off by the father and then she got divorced. And then V'yasayma b'chayav. Once she gets divorced, then she becomes like independent, even though she's still a child. The hechzira, and he marries her back. So even Rabbi Lezer that would say that you can't do yibam. No, sorry. Even the chachamim that would say that you could do yibam in the other case, over here would say that you can't do yibam. Why? The remarriage was not a perfect remarriage. The divorce was real, but the remarriage wasn't a perfect remarriage. Why? When do we say that this would be the case? He divorced her when she was a child. That's a good divorce. But he remarried her when she was a child. That's not a full marriage. But if he remarries her when she's an adult, or if he remarries her when she's a ketana and she continues to grow up and she reaches maturity while she's in this new marriage, and then he dies, then you can do chalitza or yibam. What we're seeing over here is that, let's take a look. Mishum Rabbi Lezer Amru, in the name of Rabbi Lezer, they said, Chiletzes v'leimis yabemes. Can only do chalitza. Now, Rabbi Lezer is concerned about Xera, so let's not work with Rabbi Lezer. Let's just go back to the Chachamim. And in the Chachamim, we find that there was a marriage that wasn't actually a valid marriage because he remarried her when she was a child, but she reached maturity under his care. And we're saying that now the marriage takes effect once she reaches maturity. What are you talking about? This is one woman where the marriage originally wasn't good, and now we're saying that his later relations with her is going to take care, is going to turn into a marriage. Gemara says, well, not necessarily is that the case, because Hasam Nami Bakamiflig over there, the Machlekes is different. Marsavar, one person says, Adam Mideshen Kedusha Katana Klum, Begamara Balashem Kedusha. The Tanakama holds that why does the Kedushin take effect? Because when he married her, he knew that it was nothing. Second marriage is nothing because she's a minor. So when he lives with her, when she's older, when after her birthday of 12, I guess 12 years old, 12 or 12 and a half, I don't remember. But then she would be, I guess 12. Then she would be that first relations would be the actual marriage. The other opinion holds that we don't know if the marriage is good. He doesn't know if the marriage was good, and so therefore he never really consummates that marriage with the relations, with the intention that this is our marriage. He never does that because he always thought their first marriage was good. Itmar Nami. We have another statement. Yeah, they both need intention. Yeah, both need to have intention. We have a statement that supports Rabbah. There's Amar Ravacha Bar Yaakov Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Ravacha Bar Yaakov says the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Mekadesh al Tanai. Well, the betrothal was with a condition, but then the marriage, the consummation of the marriage was without any condition. Everyone agrees that it doesn't require a get because he was relying on the first condition, in which that was nothing. No, it seems to be support for that opinion. Ravacha, the son of Rabbi Ika, the nephew, I guess, of Ravacha Bar Yaakov, asked this question, the following question: Chalitza mutas kshera. If there's a mistaken chalitza, it's still good. Ezui chalitza mutas. What is a mistaken chalitza? Let's say they told him, do chalitza, and that's going to be the marriage. Maybe they had to convince him, they had to do a trick on him. He said, she's going to pull off the shoe and she's going to spit, and that's the way they do a marriage over here. So we say that that's considered a chalitza, even though he thinks that he's marrying her with this, but it's actually going to turn out that this is really the chalitza. And Amar Rabbi Yechanan says, Ani shayne bein sheneskaven hu, b'lein neskaven he, bein sheneskaven he, b'lein neskaven hu, chalitza psula. He says, I don't agree with that. They both need intention that the chalitza is a chalitza, but she's kaven shnayim until they both have intention. And you say that it's a good chalitza. Elam Rabbi Yechanan, rather Rabbi Yechanan says, Kol shem chalitza menashetit nach masayim zuz. Rather, what we really mean is, when would it be a good chalitza? If they fool her into saying, and if they fool him, they say, perform chalitza, and you'll get a check. You'll get a 200 zuz, and it turns out that they don't give him anything. But there we say that the chalitza is good. He had intention for chalitza. He's just expecting a check. It said, sorry, we fooled you. So checks in the mail. So we say that's a good chalitza. Al makivan David Maisa. That means once he does the action, what just happened here? There was a condition on this action. He's supposed to get 200 zuz, but he does the action, and he doesn't get the 200 zuz, and we say that the action was good. If that's the case, then kivan the ball. Why are you telling me that there was a condition here on the there was a condition on the betrothal, but once he does the action of consummates the marriage, we should say that the whole condition goes off. We should just knock off the whole condition. That's a very general question. right? The Gemara says, Amar Lei, he responds to him, Bar Bei Rav, like yeshiva student. Shaper Kamer, you're saying well, Michti, take a look at this. Kol Tanai, and maybe Shaper Kamer is actually a question. He's saying a rhetorical question. Shaper Kamer, are you saying well? Kol Tanai Meheche Gamrinan, where do we learn that conditions work, stipulations work? Mitanai B'nei Gad of B'nei Ruvain. We learn it from the B'nai Gad of B'nai Ruvain. Remember when they wanted to get the area outside on the other side of the Jordan. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells them that if they go to fight, then they can take it. If they don't go to fight, then they can't. So they have to be. He made a stipulation there of how they'll be able to get it. So the way that he made that stipulation teaches us how stipulations work. Any Tanai that would be similar to the way Moshe Rabbeinu did it then, it's Tanai, which that is also a condition that could be performed through a shliach. What does that mean? That the land would be given to them through Yeshua. Wasn't Moshe Rabbeinu. So ki hasam havi Tanai, then that would be a good condition. But if you can't perform the action through the shliach, which is an example of that is chalitza. Chalitza cannot be performed by anyone else other than the husband's brother. It's not comparable to the B'nai Gad of B'nai Reuven. Gemara says, 1 second. What about what we're saying over here back to us? The relations. Relations can't be performed through a shliach. And we're saying that we can have conditions on the relation, if it's going to be a real marriage or not. As well, that's mishum diskus havayis ladadi. That's because there's a comparison when it comes to marriage, that the betrothal could have a condition on it. And so therefore, once the betrothal can have a condition, also the marriage itself can also have a condition on it. Or rather, just like the marriage of Kesef can have a condition on it, money, by sending him money, so too the other marriages, that's what it means. The other marriages, which is even through Bia, even through the other betrothals, even through relations, can also have a condition on it. Let's leave it over here.
Excuse me, who's saying that? That the Nisuyin can have a Tanai?
Not the Nisuin can have a Tanai, but the Kedushin can have a Tanai, even if the Kedushin is Bia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
This whole discussion felt to me like a discussion in Mekach Ta. Is that a fair comment, or am I missing something?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, have a good day.